Let's take a look at some of the areas that Tenzig can help you with, especially when it comes to planning, managing and maintaining your Windows 10 endpoints, either in the workplace or home office environment. The UWF, as we'll refer to it, is part of Windows 10 and later versions of the OS and was designed to provide a clean experience for thin clients and workspaces that have frequent guests like schools, libraries or hotel lobby computers. Guests can work, change settings and install software. After the device reboots, the next guest receives a clean experience. The UWF has a concept called exclusions that are either file or folder locations or registry entries on the disk and allow you to exclude them from the UWF filtering process. This means that anything you specify as an exclusion will bypass the UWF completely, so if applications or the OS want to, they have complete freedom to write content to that location. Your organization might have a requirement that Windows updates, antivirus applications and their virus definition data, also any new application or feature updates locations, are all excluded so they can freely write to the disk. The overlay is where the UWF stores its data and can either be in RAM or on the physical disk on the Windows 10 IoT client. This overlay is written to during the uptime of the thin client and then cleared during a reboot. If you choose to store the virtual overlay in RAM, then it has the benefit of being able to reduce the wear on write-sensitive media like solid-state drives. However, there are exceptions to this rule, as you may still need to write data to the physical drive, like we mentioned in the exclusions previously. With both overlays, there are pros and cons. If, however, your main concern is preventing wear and tear on all of your solid-state drives, then you'll want to use a RAM overlay. Tenzig can advise on how to best preserve your RAM overlay uptime during logged-on sessions by excluding all necessary writes from the UWF and pushing them straight to disk. Examples would be VDI client logs, Windows Defender application and definitions, and Windows event logs, but to name a few. It's worth noting that as part of its standard Windows 10 IoT thin client build, Tenzig have their own GUI interface called the UWF Wizard, which enables you to configure your UWF overlay settings and exclusion list too. This wizard enables you to locally configure the UWF by using the GUI interface, but offers a whole lot more. It allows you to set up custom shells, gives you the ability to enable or disable certain screen experiences such as welcome screen animations, lock and boot options, and even fine-tune welcome screen content. It also gives you greater control over how your users can interact with the OS and any specific application-related keyboard shortcuts. Tenzig recently produced a 60-page guide dedicated to setting up, managing and monitoring the UWF. In that document, you'll discover all you need to know about Microsoft's Unified Write Filter running on a Tenzig Windows 10 IoT LTSC 2021 device. It'll be looking at overlays, what they are, where they reside and outline the pros and cons of using them. And also look at what happens when they become exhausted and how you can mitigate any potential operational issues. It talks about the different types of filter exclusions and how useful and also how critical they are for certain applications and OS functionality. The document also runs through a proof of concept and best practices for setting up and managing your UWF configuration in the live environment. It guides you in setting up the overlay, building in certain exclusions, and recommends configurations for your local applications. In that proof of concept section, Tenzig will explain and give examples of how you can monitor and maintain the UWF using the GUI, command line and scripting options. This will focus on using tools such as Windows Event Viewer, command line scripting via PowerShell and also some messaging tricks via triggers to Windows Task Scheduler. To gain access to this guide, just contact your local Tenzig technical support team and ask for a copy of Discovering Microsoft's Unified Write Filter. on Tenzig Windows 10 IoT LTSC 2021 thin clients. This guide is also available to download from the Tenzig website. Just head over to tenzig.com/tenzig-uwf-config and click the link at the bottom of the screen to download the PDF. Traditionally, the standard Tenzig Windows 10 IoT LTSC build came with a set of popular VDI or DaaS clients pre-installed. It was recognised that a better approach would be to give customers the ability to configure the units to their own specific business needs. This would mean if a customer only had requirements for its thin clients to access a specific VDI or DaaS environment, let's say for example Azure Virtual Desktops or Windows 365 Cloud PCs, then they would simply install the latest remote desktop client on their Tenzig devices. This would mean that in future they would only need to be concerned with keeping that VDI or DaaS client up to date. Again, Tenzig have produced a very comprehensive guide on how to customize your Windows 10 IoT LTSC 2021 devices. We show you how to install the applications that you specifically need to meet your own organization's infrastructure requirements. The guide walks you through installing 3 popular client applications and includes Microsoft's remote desktop client among them. It points you in the direction of sites to visit so you can download the latest client apps just mentioned and shows you how to install them locally on your thin client devices. To round off, the guide takes you on a tour of Tenzig Manager's built-in package manager and shows you how to custom build your favourite VDI DaaS clients into an installer package, ready for deployment to your Tenzig Windows 10 IoT LTSC 2021 devices. During the package creation and deployment section, we also give you examples of deployment options for each package and explain the use case for each option, so you have several methods at your disposal, especially if there's one that benefits you specifically. To grab your own copy of this guide, head over to www.tenzig.com/welcome and click on the link to the PDF document for the welcome booklet. Inside the welcome booklet, scroll down to the Thin Clients for Windows 10 IoT section and click the link to Installing VDI DaaS Applications, where you'll be able to download your own copy of this guide we just mentioned inside there. Creating a custom shell gives you the ability to launch your user's desktop to run a single application at login, so that your end users only get access to what they need and nothing more. Your organization might have a specific business requirement for your end users to only run a remote desktop client on startup so they can gain access to their AVD VDI or Windows 365 Cloud PCs. Tenzig gives you the ability to create this environment for your endpoints in several different ways. One method is to use the Tenzig UWF wizard directly on the local machine itself. Another option is to use Tenzig Manager to build a custom package using the package manager and then deploy this to as many endpoints as you wish. Tenzig developed a couple of Windows applications that can be deployed via Tenzig Manager to either set your Windows 10 IoT thin clients in or out of this secure single app kiosk mode. If you have a subscription to Microsoft Endpoint Manager, MEM, formerly known as Intune, inside your Azure Active Directory, then you can create a kiosk-based configuration profile to configure your Tenzig Windows 10 IoT devices out in the field, just like Tenzig Manager's Package Manager can do. You can either create a single or multi-app kiosk using this method. You can use one of the built-in kiosk templates that will allow you to easily switch certain Windows 10 IoT features on or off when applying the profile too. A kiosk configuration profile is really straightforward to set up and can be up and running on your client devices in minutes. You might want to build a kiosk shell for your Windows 10 IoT devices that only has one application on the desktop and that it launches automatically when the device logs in. You might also want this device to hide its taskbar, as there's nothing else to switch to anyway. It just makes things a little bit neater when certain features are not needed. Before we move on, we'll just take you through some screens to show you how easy it is to set up a single or multi-app kiosk configuration profile inside Endpoint Manager, and then show you what our Tenzig Windows 10 thin client looks like following deployment. We need to obtain some application-specific information from our Tenzig Windows thin clients first. We're going to create two applications on our Windows multi-app kiosk thin client desktop by adding the remote desktop client and then the Microsoft Edge browser, both as Win32 apps. We need to find the location of the Edge browser and remote desktop client applications executables, and also something known as the AU MID or Application User Model ID. You can find the AU MID in several different ways on your Windows clients, using File Explorer to navigate to the Installed Apps folder, getting them from the registry, or using PowerShell to extract them. We'll show you how to do this by using PowerShell, as we'll then be able to cut and paste the exe locations and AU MID details directly into the MEM configuration profile. To open PowerShell, right-click the Start menu and click Run. Inside the dialog box, type in PowerShell and press Enter or OK. Once inside the PowerShell console, type in Get-Start Apps and press Enter. And you'll see a complete list of installed applications and the respective AU MIDs under the heading of App ID. We can see the app name Remote Desktop just down the list and its associated app ID next to it, called Microsoft.RemoteDesktop.wpf. We can also see the Edge browser app ID named MS Edge just a bit further down. I already know the executable locations for these apps, so now we're ready to create the kiosk configuration profile in Endpoint Manager. Once inside the Endpoint Manager portal, we need to click on Devices and then scroll down and click Configuration Profiles. We need to click Create Profile and then click the Platform drop-down in the right-hand menu and select Windows 10 and later from the list. From the profile type below, we need to select Templates, highlight Kiosk further down the list, and click Create. Give the profile a meaningful name and description, and then click Next. Now, we need to select a kiosk mode that we want our Tenzig endpoints to operate in. We have the options Single App Full Screen Kiosk or Multi-App Kiosk. If you're sure that you'll only ever want to use a single application for your users to access, then select Single App. However, if initially you think you need one app but might want to introduce others in future, then select Multi-App Kiosk. This method gives you the ability to run a single app that auto-launches and behaves in a similar way to the single app option, but then gives you the flexibility to add additional apps in future, should your organization decide this is now a business requirement. We're going to select Multi-App Kiosk for the purpose of this demonstration. If you set Target Devices running Windows 10/11 in S mode to Yes, then you won't be able to include any Win32 apps in here to run inside your kiosk. If you set this to No, then you will be able to build in Win32 apps in the profile. But if your client endpoints are running Windows 10 or 11 in S mode, then these configs won't be applied to those devices. For this demo, we're going to say no, as our clients aren't running S mode and we want to set up our kiosk with Win32 apps, so we can show you how it works by adding in the AU MID and exe locations also. In the user logon type box, you have several options available, including auto logon, local user accounts, Azure AD user or group, and HoloLens visitor. We're going to select auto logon, as we want our device to automatically sign in every time our device reboots and then launch the kiosk for us. Setting this option has the added benefit of automatically creating the user named Kiosk on your devices once the configuration profile has been applied to your endpoints. This is really useful if your clients usually only have local user accounts that they sign in with, and you want to keep this Kiosk user and configuration separate from those accounts. From a maintenance perspective, first we're going to create the remote desktop client as a Win32 app. So we click Add Win32 app, and in the right-hand window type in the name of the app. This can be anything you want, but it makes sense to call it something meaningful to the app, so not to confuse your end users. Remote desktop client is a good choice. Next, we're going to copy and paste in the location of the application executable, including the physical.exe name itself. In this example, ours is going to be the C program files remote desktop msrdcw.exe. Now the last piece of information required is the AU MID that was displayed next to the remote desktop app name when we ran the PowerShell function get start apps. This AU MID was called Microsoft.remotedesktop.wpf. So we'll paste that in here also and then click OK to save it. We want this remote desktop client app to launch automatically as soon as the Kiosk user auto logs in, so we need to tick the auto launch box next to the app. Next, we're going to add the Edge browser as a Win32 app, so again we click Add Win32 app and fill in the relevant details, name, path and the AU MID, which in this case is MS Edge. Now we have our two apps that will appear on the Tenzig Windows 10 Thin Client desktop once the configuration profile is applied to the device. We're going to do one last thing before we finalize the profile, and that's to make the Windows taskbar visible to our users, so they can easily switch between the two apps if they're running at the same time. We need to click Show on Windows taskbar option below and then click Next at the bottom of the screen. We click Next again on Scope Tags and then assign it to our group that our Tenzig device already belongs to in the AAD. We click Add Groups under the Included Groups section and then choose the group Tenzig Devices by typing it into the right-hand search box, highlighting it and then clicking Select below. We click Next, Next and then Create once we're happy with the contents of the config profile. Once saved, you'll see it appear in the list. Now let's see what happens to our Tenzig Windows 10 IoT device once the profile has been applied and the client has restarted. Notice that the device is logging in automatically as user Kiosk. That's created locally on the Thin Client as part of the MEM configuration profile during the deployment and setup process. Once logged in, notice that the remote desktop client is launched automatically. Remember, we switched this on during the configuration profile setup before we deployed it to the Tenzig Thin Client. If we minimize the remote desktop client, you can see our two Kiosk app icons on the desktop. If we click on the Microsoft Edge icon, this launches alongside our remote desktop client, and because we specified that we wanted our taskbar visible, we can switch easily between both applications, but can also use Alt and Tab to do this in the traditional manner. Remember, if you wanted to add or remove your Thin Client apps at a later date, then it's just a simple case of modifying your MEM config profile to do just that. Creating multi-app kiosks can be tailored to suit your own needs, and even modified to add more apps or just even run the multi-app kiosk with a single app, just by removing those apps you don't need and then hiding the taskbar. If you watch this clip, then you have all you need to do this in your own Endpoint Manager environment. But if you'd like a personal copy of the documentation used for this video, Tenzig already have it for you. Just contact your local tech support team for more details. Security and stability of your Tenzig Windows 10 IoT thin clients is extremely important to you and your organization. And Windows updates more than likely feature high on the list of every IT infrastructure specialist. Tenzig have a linked video entitled Securing Windows 10 IoT thin clients via Shell Launcher, Unified Write Filter, and Windows Updates that covers a multitude of useful techniques for keeping your devices up to date. Remember we talked about managing the UWF, or Unified Write Filter, earlier in this presentation? Well, in that linked video, we show you how to set up the UWF to be able to manage bulk updates automatically, using UWF servicing mode, and also how to apply individual ones using methods to unlock the local drives for update, and then locking them again following successful maintenance. That video also demonstrates an end-to-end servicing mode update and also explains the UWF states as it goes through them, and what's actually happening before, during, and after the update process. It also talks about best practice scenarios for applying updates to your Tenzig Windows 10 devices, like we mentioned, either in batch mode, where all outstanding updates are applied in one go, or if you want to deploy and install just a single update. To find this and other how-to videos, just head over to the Tenzig YouTube channel, where you'll also find many more useful guides at your disposal. Or visit the video gallery at www.tenzig.com. Throughout this video presentation of useful guides, we mentioned Tenzig Manager's Package Manager, especially in the areas of Windows 10 IoT LTSC 2021 image customization, creating Tenzig custom shells, and applying your Windows updates. The video and documentation links give you hands-on step-by-step instructions on how to build your own custom Windows installer packages, and teach you some handy tips and tricks along the way. For example, you can deploy either single or multi-file installation packages. You can deploy and execute them from your remote shared location, or deploy and install them from the physical Tenzig endpoint. You can also use Tenzig Manager's built-in task scheduler to execute your saved packages at a predefined date in time. This is an extremely cool feature if you want to pre-deploy all your installer content to all of your thin client estate, ready to install on a go-live date. Then, on that specific install date, Tenzig Manager's task scheduler would deploy a small starter command that would in turn launch the larger previous week's pre-deployed installer package. The task schedule has many useful actions available. It also gives you the ability to deploy to individual or groups of Tenzig devices. Remember, all the apps, guides, techniques and best practices mentioned in this video are all there for further inspection and application in your own business environment. We've just scratched the surface to give you some ideas and food for thought for your own individual use cases. So please watch the full-length versions of the video content on the Tenzig YouTube and website channels, and reach out to the Tenzig team for documentation and any additional help needed to implement any of the solutions in your own organization. From all of us here at Tenzig, thanks for watching and have a wonderful rest of your day.